Alright, hello. This is Jasmine with another video for a commentary on grief. Today we're going to go back to a very important topic, stages of grief, okay? We're in part 3. So these particular aspects I know have affected pretty much everybody during this pandemic. And I'm going to show you a visual so you can see them that I used in the first video. So we've pretty much gone through all of the aspects on the left-hand side, right? Now we're at the bottom. So we're going to talk about searchings, loneliness, and isolation. So that first one, searchings, it goes by a couple of different names. So you might know it as longing, yearning, grief pangs, a lot of different names, but all the same, it's you trying to fill a void because you're craving the person that you've lost. You're trying to find comfort that you might have found with the person that you lost, and just trying to find understanding because you don't know why it happened, and you're just trying to find some sense of normalcy. This is a perfectly normal stage. What you do during this stage matters, though, and it's important that you don't get stuck in it. This is very easy to get stuck in this phase, all right? So let's talk about this. From my perspective, I didn't spend a lot of time with my son. I didn't get a lot of time with my son. He was born March 30th. He passed April 1st. There was a lot of what if statements, if only statements that I had to kind of come to terms with. It was a lot of what if I had more time with him? If only I was able to tell him about this or do this with him. If only I could have held him long before it was too late. So to combat that for myself, I had to go back to when I was still pregnant with him, because those were the happiest moments pretty much at that point. Not to say that it wasn't a happy situation when he was born, because, I got to see him, his beautiful shining face, cute little self. But there was more memories that I could pull from when I was expecting. So there was a song called Kamambela. And this is a South African song, so if you're trying to figure out what the heck I just said, trust me, I don't know how to translate it myself. It's all right. We are in this together, but it is a beautiful song. So I could have sworn, to this day, I could have sworn that Macabre was going to be a dancer. All right, if he heard a really good beat, like if I'm blasting music in a car, or if I'm just at home minding my business, if he heard a good beat, he would start moving. I can feel a little bit of back going. I'm like, all right, my baby here. All right, I'm gonna let the song pass. All right, amen, and keep going. So, but this particular song we both absolutely loved, so we were dancing together. So, whenever I feel that sense of searching, that sense of yearning for him, I play that song. So, whatever feelings I'm feeling, the what if statements, whatever, I kind of put all of that into that song and just feel it through. And when that song is over, I say, okay, we've done a good job. We felt it through. Now it's time to move forward. And I do. And it helps a lot to kind of use a very strong memory to sort of attach to, in a very positive memory. I try to think of something that I connected to him the most with, and that was that thing. So, if you're going through something, that's probably a good idea to try. Take your time with it, though. It's going to take time to kind of find what works best for you. I really didn't really find that until maybe like a couple of months after everything had happened. So give yourself time to find what's best for you, okay? This is an example that I use that helps me. The next one is loneliness. I have a very special relationship with loneliness. They don't tell you when you're pregnant that you'll feel lonely then too. In our grief, we feel like we're the only person going through it. And we have to remind ourselves that it's not true. Remember that people grieve differently. I know it's a very frustrating thing, but we do. Especially if you're in a relationship, your partner tends to grieve differently from you. If you're not willing to talk about it, please get some counseling. It's so important if you want your relationship to work, okay? If you don't talk with your partner, you should still talk to other people. Talk about it. You cannot hold this by yourself. You don't have to be strong by yourself. Talk about what you're going through. A really big thing for me was doing blast text. So what I would do is I would pick a couple people that I really wanted to talk to, and I would say, hey, when is a good time for us to talk? And kind of go from there. I didn't always know what to say or how to say it, but I would still try. The next thing I would do is I would try to find groups that I could talk about my grief in. If you Google, grief and then what aspect of grief you want to focus on, there are Facebook groups, there are groups that are doing Zoom meetings right now if you're worried about meeting in person, because most groups aren't really meeting in person right now, but there are so many alternatives to being alone, because you're not, okay? Remember that you are not by yourself in this. It may feel like it, but reach out, make an effort. I know it's hard to do, trust me. And that's why I focus so much on self-care, so I can kind of combat those feelings. But try to find at least one group where you can talk about what you're going through, okay? You gotta do it. The next one, isolation. A lot of times, we'll talk about this a little more with depression, because I'm gonna do a video on depression, just kind of focus more on it. But isolation, you'll kind of see a lot. We have the forced isolation of COVID, which is hard in and of itself, but there's an isolation that we do ourselves, where we kind of withdraw from activities that we usually do. I used to do a lot of FaceTime groups with my friends, and I didn't want to do it. It was like, I'll talk to y'all another time. If someone would tell me good or bad news, I didn't really respond. It was just like, oh, okay, all right. Apathy is a very big issue when it comes to isolation. A lot of times we're at a point where we've accepted the loss. So we go to extremes. So we can either be super emotional or just show no emotion at all. This is a normal process, but please try not to stay in it. It's a very painful one that can cause a lot of damage, especially to our other relationships that we still have. So I will suggest that you try to find those groups that I mentioned before. You need to talk about it. At this point, you need to talk about it. Try not to replace those feelings of apathy with a obsessive behavior, okay, or an addiction, things like that. It's very easy to go into those things when you're isolating, okay? If you're a friend of someone who is dealing with this process, I want you to just do some simple things. Just check on them. Say, hey, I just want to check on you. Hey, you are on my mind. Have you eaten? Have you drunk any water today? Small things, all right? If you notice that they haven't been eating or drinking, things like that, offer to bring them some food. If you can't go to them, maybe cash app them or something like that. Try to help as best you can. You don't have to physically be there if you can't, but you need to try to be present in some way, shape, or form. During COVID, it was really important to just kind of be on the phone with somebody. The other person on the line could be doing God knows what, I don't care, but just being present, that presence was important. So if you see somebody that's going through that loneliness and isolation stage, maybe try that. And once again, ask someone what works best for them. They can tell you. In some way, shape, or form, they'll tell you. All right? So, that's all I have for today. If nobody's told you, you are loved. You are enough. You are amazing. And your feelings are 100% valid. A day at a time. All right?